Hello, Frizzle Formation. It is halfway through the year and I have read quite a lot of books, and one of my favorite things to do with my reading is make graphs and get a really deep dive into the statistics. I did this at the end of 2022 and I set some goals for myself in that video. So the purpose of this video is to look at the numbers and see, am I really hitting those goals that I set for myself, and showing off some other fun, really cool graphs that I've made. We're not just getting the normal story graph spread here. No, I have some custom numbers that are, honestly, I'm still trying to figure out how this even happened in my reading. So in all of these pretty stats I'm about to show you, we are working with 70 data points, 70 books that I've read so far in 2023, and here are all of those broken down by star rating. So let's get into breaking this down. The most important goal to me that I set at the end of 2022 was to DNF more. DNF is did not finish. I want to give up on books that I'm not liking. If I'm not enjoying the book, why am I finishing it? So the way that I've decided to measure this is looking at the percent of my reading is books that I didn't like. For example, here's my 2022 reading. The yellow here is all the books I liked. And then the blue is the books that I didn't finish. And the red is books that I didn't like, books that I gave 1 or 2 stars that I finished, that I read the entirety of. And I want that slice of the pie to shrink. So here's the 2022 stats. The 1 and 2 stars being finished is 11% of the graph. And then here is 2023! I am doing so much better. The slice of books that I didn't like but I still finished is only 4% now. Sometimes I still make it all the way through the book and say, oh, that wasn't worth it, 2 stars. But I'm doing much better at making myself give up halfway through if I'm feeling that way. The next of my very important goals from the end of 2022 was to read more personalized recommendations. I tracked last year where I found all of my books, and I'll walk you through that for this year in a second, and I found through that I was most likely to enjoy a book if a friend or someone in the comments of a YouTube video said specifically, I think you'll like this book because of this. A very personalized recommendation to me ended up being the best way for me to find books that I'll love. So I decided this year I have to find more of these. So I searched out the personalized recommendations and I read them. I increased the amount of my reading that was personalized recommendations. Alas, we also have some less than ideal fallout from all of this. Here is the 7 ways that I find books that I'm tracking. And let's work our way from the bottom, the books that I tend to like the least, all the way up to the top, the books that I tend to like the best. So in 2023 so far, 11% of my reading was from a project list kind of thing, where I decided like I want to read all of the finalists in this competition. Here's a video about that. Where I'm picking the books not because like I really want to read them, but because I think it'd be interesting to do a project with them. And then 17% of my reading, and the second worst way to find books in my experience, is because it's hyped, because it's highly reviewed, because I see someone's review and it makes me want to read it. 5% of my reading is just from browsing, just looking around like at the library or on Goodreads and seeing a book that's cover is interesting and description sounds fascinating and I pick it up. 11% of my reading is from authors that I've read from before. 40% of my reading is continuing on in a series. 5% because the book was a personalized recommendation to me, and 11% a reread. And of those 7 categories, here's the average star rating I'm giving to them now. Personalized recommendations went from being the second best to the 4th best method. Not the best jump, they dropped quite a bit in average rating, but it's also such a small data set. It's only 4 books, so I feel like maybe once we have more books in this data set, it'll average out better. So I want to do even more reading of personalized recommendations in the future, and I need your help to do it. Please recommend me books that you think I'll love. A stat that is new to me tracking it, but I decided would be interesting to track this time, is how I got the book. So 62% of my reading is borrowed, typically from the library. 22% of my reading is bought books, always an ebook, because I love the portability and convenience of ebooks, and the cheapness is also very nice. And then 16% of my reading is ARCs. Is books that the publishers have graciously given me for free to read early. And one of the reasons why I started tracking this is to fit in with one of my goals, which is to read less ARCs because last year I did a little bit overboard and I didn't always love them, and I decided that this year I wanted to only request the ones from publishers that I was truly excited for, which has gone very well because last year 21% of my reading was ARCs and this year it's only 16% and I have been much happier with them. Okay, now we're getting into the really wacky, awesome graphs that I worked really hard on. So here is my Gantt chart. This is a type of chart where the x-axis, the bottom, is time, and then every single line is a different book I read. So you get to see when I read each book and how long I read it for, and it's color-coded by what I rated the book. So the green lines are for 5-star books, making our way through the rainbow to red is 1 star. So here's the 70 books. You can see that my reading pace tends to be fairly constant. I mean, I have slower times and faster times, but I'm always chugging along on something. And I'm typically reading, with exceptions, 2 books at a time. One that is an audiobook and one that is an iBook. Now, here comes the weirdest, wackiest stat of it all. I am still trying to wrap my head around how this stat even makes any sense, but it's definitely true because I have 70 data points proving it. So here is that. In connection with tracking all of my reading for the nice Gantt chart I just showed off for you, I got to see how many days it took me to read each book. And then I threw into the spreadsheet also how many pages the book was. And if I didn't finish it, I only put how many pages I read in it. So then I have this new stat at my disposal, which is the average number of pages per day for each book. So I decided to put these on a graph where the x-axis is pages per day. So the books that I read really slow are off on the left, and the books that I read really fast are on the right with high pages per day reading. And then the y-axis is what I rated the book. Now here's what I expected this graph to look like. I read books faster when I like them. So the fastest books are going to be the 5 stars and the slowest books are going to be the 1 stars. It's just going to be a nice linear relationship. But I was kind of prepared that maybe I read 4 stars and 5 stars the same speed, I read 1 stars, 2 stars the same speed, so maybe the graph would look more like that, you know? What I was not prepared for was the actual result, which is this. And this trend started showing up very early in the data, like in January, where we have 2 humps, it's bi-modal, and I thought, this is just because we only have a few data points, it'll smooth out when we add more data. And now we have 70 data points and the humps only got more pronounced. And I was trying so hard to explain away this phenomenon. This graph is like a running average of the data points, and I was thinking maybe I'm just not averaging enough. But no matter how much I average within reasonable limits, this is still the shape. Or I thought maybe it's only a few outliers responsible for the shape, so taking out some few outliers, no, it's still the same shape. So the weird conclusion is that if I'm really liking a book, I'll either read it at around 40 pages a day, or I'll read it over here at around 90 pages a day. If I'm disliking a book, I'll either read it at around 30 pages a day or less, or at around 55 pages a day. Somehow, it goes back and forth, and I do not understand how, but it is the clear trend. If you would also like to track your reading in this way, I would be fascinated to see what other people's pages per day versus star rating graphs look like. Because this is really weird, right? Everyone can agree this is weird? Yeah. The last of my very important goals for 2023 was to read more character-focused books and really seek that out. The way that I'm tracking that is through BookTone, which is a reader personality test that I designed. I'll link it down in the footnotes if you would like to learn more and take the test for yourself. But the gist is one of the things that this personality test is sifting for and sorting the books in is if it's character-focused or not. Because looking at my reading from 2022, I realized that like looking at my 5 stars, so this is 5 stars from 2022, they were nearly all character focused, that's the blue here, and the non-character focus is just that little sliver of orange. So I thought I need to improve this. Looking at all of my books for 2022, so I want the orange slices to shrink, the blue slices to grow. So this is 2022, and here is the 2023. I'm doing better! The way that I do this is generally before I pick up a book, I'll look a little bit at the Goodreads reviews of them and see if anyone's mentioning how awesome the characters are. And if no one's talking at all about the characters, I simply don't pick it up. And that doesn't really rule out many books. Most books have some fun characters that someone's talking about in the review, and even if I'm trying so hard to only read books that are character focused, still some get through. But it has helped, which is fine. Now, the big goal of all of this, the big reason behind me trying to structure my reading and tracking so many things is because I want to have fun reading books. I want to find more books that I love. My biggest motivation is to love the books I'm reading more by better picking up books that I'm going to love. So the easiest way to track that is to track what my average rating is, because if I'm loving the books more, it'll go up. So in 2022, the average rating was 3.36. So all of this is working towards bringing that number up. And for 2023 so far, my average is 3.36. Are you kidding me? I am hitting every single one of my goals and it still isn't improving anything. I'm having a lot of fun though. It was so fun to make all these crafts and I'm really enjoying reading, as I was last year. So I suppose I have that going for me. Thank you so much for watching this video, and a big thank you shout out to my patrons.